The state is the great fictitious entity by which everyone seeks to live at the expense of everyone else. Frederick Bastiat.
The cost of living crisis is something that's very popularly discussed both on the internet and in mainstream society. And what is causing it is mainly not just the cost of everything going up, because things that are more variable costs in people's lives, whether that's subscription services, whether that's consumer electronics, clothing, even cars and travel to a certain degree, more discretionary purchases are dropping in real terms. The problem with the cost of living in the United States, particularly, is the escalation of fixed costs, like the stuff that you have to pay no matter what, as just as part of what you need to survive, whether that's housing, healthcare, education, which has become a necessity in the modern world, despite what some critics would say, and taxes are the four places that have the least flexibility of working your way around spending, but also have the highest cost increases. A fifth one I would add is protein. And I'll have a separate video where I talk about the cost of meat and why that's going up. But in general, it's the necessities that are going up way higher than inflation. Why is this the case? Because a lot of this stuff has been done indirectly. The composition has shifted. So even if like federal income tax rates, which have basically gone nowhere since the 1980s, have done nothing, the tax burden on the average person has gone up in magnitudes in indirect ways. And say like the government workforce hasn't gone up that much. The amount of people who are dependent on the state for their livelihood is much higher than it was, say, 30 to 50 years ago. Like I did a video where I talked about this where in the Doge video, I think, where half of all jobs that pay between 50 and 200K are either from the government, from healthcare and education, a company whose revenues is primarily from contracts with the government. And that all has to be paid for somehow. And since governments tend to be inefficient, you are also paying for the inefficiencies that are inherently built into these systems. And but we'll break these down piece by piece. But the core real thesis that I'm going to present out is the expansion and the inefficiencies involved with the government growing as a percentage of the economy is what is creating the increased problems with fixed costs. And we're going to start really with taxes and the state. The state has tripled in size. Like government spending on the state level, not federal, but used to be 3% of GDP in the early 60s. In 2000, that got to 8%. And now is about 9 to 9.5% as of 2021. Federal outlays as a percentage of GDP was 15% in the 1950s, about 19 to 22% in the 70s through the 90s, and from 2008 to present is anywhere from 23 to 31% of GDP is now federal government outlays. So basically, the federal government is spending twice as much relative to the economy since 1950. Non-defense spending alone, so let's just take out military. In 1925, non-defense spending was 1.5% of GDP. It is 5.1% of GDP in 1955, 14% in 1976, and about 18.6% today. So, yeah. So, like, the aggregate tax burden hasn't moved directly. As I mentioned, that, like, total tax burden has gone up a little bit from 24% to 31%. And most of that ratchet happened in the post-World War II era from the 50s and the 60s. But that's become indirect in other ways. One is structurally higher inflation, whether state and local taxes have gone up, but they've gone up in ways that you wouldn't think. A lot of states originally didn't have income taxes, and then they start adding them. But that's starting to change in the 2020s, where you're starting to see states cut or remove state or local income taxes. States such as Missouri, Hawaii, and Mississippi and Arizona have materially cut or have plans to phase out their income taxes. But they're taxing through other ways. Sales taxes have progressively gone up in pretty much every state in the last 30 years. You have increased fines and fees from states for any sort of regulatory violations. The burden of increased regulation is more expensive and has to be paid for this through higher consumer prices as a whole. And so you've also seen payroll taxes gradually go up across the board, and introducing taxes that previously didn't exist, whether that's um, taxes on digital services in certain states, or whether that is paying for parking in places you previously didn't have to pay for parking, increased state tuition for state universities, that those are inherently higher taxes in a way. And then property tax. Property taxes haven't gone up that much in terms of percentage wise, but since the values of properties have gone up for a variety of reasons we're going to get into, the amount that you have to pay every year in property tax has gone up exponentially, especially in places that don't have protections like California does with Prop 13. And even in places like that, if you're a new person buying a home, you're paying much more property tax than the person who bought it in the 1980s. So tax burden in general has gone up significantly, and that's a big driver to this. And the ways that the most indirect taxes have been shown is in housing. Regulation alone has added $131,000 to the average price of a home. So the average price of a home in America is $400,000 to $500,000, depending on what metric you look at. And 130,000 is anywhere from like 25 to 30% of the cost of a home now is just due to increased regulation cost, whether that's permitting to be allowed to build, whether that's all the new taxes and fees that you have to do, or new compliance that builders have to follow that require just more expensive ways or requirement of certain types of labor. Construction phase regulatory share of a home, just like the permitting fees and code changes, has gone up from 13% to 17% of the price of building a new home. And that is a real go up. Like, we have this perverse incentive where as the population ages and a lot of them are homeowners, they want their home prices to go up, but the only way to do that is to restrict building. And so therefore it makes it more unaffordable for newer families to build. And so it might benefit somebody who's already had their home, but it hurts those. And that's purely regulatory. That's a policy direction. It's a political thing. That is not an economic driver. And so, and the state enforcing these draconian anti-development policies is what is driving housing costs up, in addition to just the direct costs of compliance and regulation and construction. And so as a result, again, 20 to 30% of the house you're paying for is simply government cost. And if housing was 20% to 30% lower, a lot of the affordability problems, especially outside of a few very high cost of living markets, would be gone overnight. A quick interruption here. The best way to help support this channel is joining our Substack, Nick's Present Value. It's a way to keep updated on future tour events, video releases, live stream announcements and recaps, as well as bonus written content and charts and data that I use as a lot of the sources for the content of my video. For those who join this Substack, they get a complimentary reading list of the top 100 books that I recommend on social class, finance, and economics. That is a lot of the source material that I've used to make a lot of the content here, and I have added my insights on top of. Follow us on Substack with the link in the description or in the pinned comment, and I look forward to continuing the conversation there. Now back to the main content of this video. The next one is healthcare. Administrative costs, not like the doctors or the nurses, your medication, or the actual treatment involved in healthcare, is 25 to 35% of all healthcare spending. And for hospitals, it's over 40% of their expenses. And admin staff has grown 87% versus the 75% just for direct patient care. So as a result, admin is eating up a bigger share of every dollar that you spend in healthcare related stuff. And the way that the ACA is structured and a lot of the other healthcare regulations across the country, they have a minimum required spend that health insurance companies have to spend. And the problem too is a lot of America's jobs got hollowed out because of manufacturing in the Rust Belt. And so as a result, as a policy measure, maybe it's subconscious, but we have now tried to shift a lot of these people who previously been working in manufacturing into healthcare and education. That's why you have a lot of cities in the Midwest and in the Rust Belt region that are known for having eds and meds. Cities like Philadelphia, Boston, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Minneapolis, Chicago, even to a lesser extent, that the biggest employers are like universities, school systems, hospitals, or healthcare clinics. And because like the share of instruction, like the amount you're paying professors or buildings that are used specifically for classrooms, was 41% of university spending in 1980. Today, it's 29%, whereas the share of administrators has grown at that time. Like, I remember even when I was at UC school in my undergrad, like, for every professor, there was at least one, if not more than one administrator that was having a six-figure salary and had to do something to maintain the internals of the university, even if it didn't actually add to the direct mission of the university, which is education and research. Per student spending growth from 1993 to 2007 was 39% in instruction versus 61% in admin. And um, 3 to 11, about 5 to 10% of budgets is regulatory compliance. Most of the bloat is institutional hiring choices, not direct government mandates, but it creates the same problem. So let's go post 2000. All CPI is 92%, like total cumulative inflation. Housing is 111%, medical care is 120%, and college is about 185%. And I think a lot of those numbers, particularly the housing one, is understated for a variety of reasons. And it's not a coincidence that the three sectors that are the most impacted by government regulation and policy-driven incentives are the ones that create the most increased costs. And since these are fixed costs and people have to have them no matter what, their demand is stable. And so as a result, there's more room to fill it up with bloat. And the government tries to regulate it to prevent rent-seeking behavior, but they're paradoxically creating the high costs and more rent-seeking behavior by interfering with these industries. And it's become a structural problem because healthcare and government is 65% of all job growth since 2024. Private education and health services is 31% of jobs added. 42% of recent college graduates are underemployed, like they're working at jobs that don't require their level of degree, whether a degree at all or if they're like a postgraduate graduate, don't require a master's degree or a PhD. And the fixed cost ones are absorbing this oversupply because they're insulated from market discipline because they have regulatory protections that don't force them to compete. And so instead of that, across housing, healthcare, and education, cost growth has gone up a lot. The state didn't need to raise your taxes directly to do this. They just did it indirectly through your house, through your hospital bill, and through your tuition. And it's being ratcheted up. So if you want something to blame for the cost of living crisis, it's not greedy businessmen or corporations. And since people don't like their taxes being raised directly, we found a way to raise your taxes indirectly by increasing the cost of essentials. Well, whereas like, why isn't this a problem in other countries, like say like Europe and in developed Asia? Well, they do have a cost of living problem, inflation. They will raise your taxes. So like you don't pay for healthcare directly through a health insurance premium, but you're probably paying more than you would pay for a health insurance premium in the increased in taxes that you'd have to pay versus if you lived in the United States. And so this is a global problem. It's just that it shows up more directly through higher taxation, maybe in other places, where in the US, they do it through just raising the cost of essential goods and services. Let me know what you think. Do you think that I'm wrong about the cost of living crisis? Is there something I'm missing here? I'd love to make this a conversation. Thank you for watching.